Part 15. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 141. Chapter 141 Dancer Role. Xiaoling has read the script and thinks it's good. She was invited to audition for the role of a dancer. At the palace banquet, she performed a stunning dance and then assassinated the emperor in one fell swoop. That role requires superb dancing skills, and there are many things to note about the character creation. If you can master it, you will be very good. The problem is that the difficulty is really high, and if you're not careful, you'll end up messing up. Lilei asked her how the script was. She said, "I want to discuss it with Sister Maina." Lilei felt aggrieved. "Why didn't you come to me?" Xiaoling, can you tell the difference between folk dance and classical dance? Can you tell the difference between war and the king of gamblers? Do you know how to create a character? This big boss is good at everything. It's just that the professional level is a bit lacking. When they first met, he couldn't even hear her famous song from her previous life. When Lin Yuanyi mentioned war last night, his blank look showed that he knew nothing. Sometimes, Xiaoling would have the same thought as Lin Yuanyi. Tianyi fell into the hands of such an unreliable person, why hasn't it closed down yet? Lilei felt even more aggrieved, but what Xiaoling said was the truth and he couldn't refute it at all. Sister Maina came very quickly. As expected of being a first-class agent in the industry, after learning about war and the character, she made a decision after thinking for a moment. Take it. Xiaoling, aren't you afraid that I won't be able to act well? She is not as confident about acting as she is about singing. She only made one movie in her last life, and it was a script tailor-made for her by the emperor, so she performed in her true colors. Sister Maina said, "The opportunity is rare. Although this role is difficult to play, it fits you well, and the screen time is not much. As long as you work hard to study, there is a chance to get it right. There are so many stars, the luxurious lineup of celebrities, the highlight of the palace banquet, and the 4.5-minute shot of you dancing alone, it's totally worth fighting for. The entertainment industry has never been a place where qualifications are required. If there are shortcuts, you would be a fool not to take them. No one will miss the opportunity to become famous in one fell swoop." So Xiaoling nodded, "Okay, take it." She called Wei Shaiyan and basically said that she couldn't go to the recording studio during this period, and her first priority was to win the role in war. Wei Shaiyan rarely made things difficult for her, but said listlessly, "Okay, go ahead." Xiaoling was a little worried. "Wei, what's wrong with you? Are you feeling unwell?" In the recording studio on the other end of the phone, Wei Shaiyan was wearing a spotless white shirt, holding a commemorative album between her long and well-jointed fingers, with a black craft paper cover and extremely expensive craftsmanship. A gold-pink butterfly, next to the butterfly are two sad handwritten characters, Swan Song. This is the last album of Queen Xiaoling. It contains Caged Butterfly, which was released not long ago, as well as some other music. Wei Shaiyan gently stroked the butterfly with her fingers. "Have you listened to Xiaoling's new album? I suggest you listen to it. Is that Feng Kan done with his talent? He just used some of his past stuff to make up for it, but, Xiaoling, all our song release plans have to be postponed because that surprised everyone again with this album." It is rare to hear Wei Shaiyan praising Feng Kan, even though he used the word bastard. Xiaoling was stunned for a moment. Her second thought was, the new album from her previous life. What the hell? She was certain that the only unpublished song she had was Caged Butterfly. Did Feng Kan make an a cappella version, and remixed versions, and accompaniment versions, and then put it together without restraint? Album. Forget it, this is not the point. The point is, how long will our song release plan be postponed? It will definitely be postponed until the wave of Queen Xiaoling's new album is over. Wei Shaiyan was extremely depressed. No matter what, You can't catch up with this year's Best Newcomer award. Whether you can win this award depends on your luck. My luck is not very good. Xiaoling wanted to laugh at herself, but taking into account Wei Shayan's fragile and sensitive emotions, she endured it and smiled. Well, it doesn't matter, it's just one less song. Sister, I will kill everyone. How old are you? Wei Shayan sneered. Next year I'll be 19. Xiaoling calculated. The days passed so fast, it turned out that it had been so long since she was reborn. She joked with Wei Shayan a few times and waited until he felt better before hanging up the phone. In the following days, she locked herself up to figure out the role she was about to audition for, and practiced dancing hard. The audition for War of Sorrow was very demanding, requiring him to choreograph his own choreography, and the film crew specified several S-level dance moves. Time was running out, so Xiaoling tried several plans and finally settled on one. At the end of the day, Li Lei came to the door and offered to send her to an audition. Are you going with me? Xiaoling raised her eyebrows and looked at him. Li Lei Xiao, it's natural for a boyfriend to pick up his girlfriend. In the past, when she was working overtime in the recording studio, he would often take her home, but that was different. She was one of her own people in the recording studio, and this time she was going to the outside world. Xiaoling was worried that their relationship would be exposed, so she pondered a little. Li Lei said eagerly, I will be very good and will never cause you any trouble, and I will never expose our relationship. Looking at his expectant look, Xiaoling softened her heart and said, okay. Li Lei succeeded in being cute and was very happy. He said smoothly, by the way, tell your assistant not to come. Why? I'm driving you there. Why are you driving someone else? He changed his face very skillfully, and he changed into an aggrieved look in a second. You really think of me as the driver? Xiaoling, but what? I'm not the only one auditioning this time. Other artists must have assistants. If not, it would be a waste of time. Pomp. Li Lei showed his white teeth and smiled, isn't it enough to bring me Pomp? Xiaoling. Sir boss, if I bring an assistant, people will know it is an assistant at a glance. If I bring you, how should I explain the relationship between the two? If she dared to reveal his identity, gossip reporters would dare to write about the scandal the next day, and they would also bring in all kinds of malicious speculations about the starlet's financial support. Xiaoling is very troubled. Li Lei noticed her troubles and thought for a moment, how about I lend you Sutang? She thought of Beauty Sue's jade-like cold eyes, and she couldn't help but shudder. She couldn't bear it. Moreover, she still couldn't explain why a big boss special assistant lost his nerve and listened to her orders. Forget it, Xiaoling said dejectedly, just the two of us. Don't tell people that you are my boyfriend, and don't say that you are my boss. Okay. Li Lei smiled with his eyebrows crooked, then paused. I don't mind exposing my identity. I mind. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 142. Chapter 142, Being Poured Coffee. Li Lei is unhappy. His Xiaoling is good at everything, but she is too cautious in this matter. However, as a good boyfriend with 24 filial piety, he still silently complied with Xiaoling's request, keeping a low profile. Even the car that took her to the audition was a Land Rover that had been modified to look unremarkable. When I arrived at the audition location, I discovered that there were many famous cars parked at the door, from BMW to Cadillac. It was like a fair. Li Lei's Land Rover drove around the parking lot before finding a parking space. As soon as he parked the car, his cell phone rang. He glanced at the number and said to Xiaoling, you go in first, and I'll answer the call. Xiaoling nodded and jumped out of the car. Not far away is the audition studio. There are two security guards chatting at the entrance. Just as she was about to go in, a group of people suddenly walked out of the door. The leader was a girl in gorgeous clothes. She was holding a coffee cup in her hand. She was walking and talking to the people around her. Xiaoling couldn't get out of the way and was hit by her. With a swish sound, the entire cup of hot coffee in her hand poured onto Xiaoling. Xiaoling was knocked back 2 steps and felt a pain all over her body. The place where she was splashed was burning. She lowered her head and saw that the light-colored clothes on her upper body were completely ruined. There was a big coffee mark on her chest, and it kept coming. The ground was dripping with water and looked very miserable. "How are you walking?" the girl opposite had already gotten angry first. Xiaoling looked up at her and realized that she was an old acquaintance, Li Beer. They are really enemies. Last time at the Nanshan Horse Racing Club, the two of them had a falling out and turned against each other. Today they met again by chance. Li Beer also realized that it was her. She was shocked at first, and then sneered, "Yes, Xingling? Who do you think you are? Don't get in the way. Why don't you get out of the way?" Last time at the Nanshan Horse Racing Club, she was in front of so many people. His face turned ugly, and it was all thanks to the stinky woman in front of him. That time, she was kicked by young Master Joe when she returned home, and she lost a huge financial backer. Now she finally found another one after a lot of effort, but the hatred in her heart has never faded away. Xiaoling's chest was burning, and she was a little worried about being burned. She was the first to accuse her, so she became angry. "Last time you lost on horseback riding, and your brain was kicked by a horse, right? Are you blind?" There was a group of people surrounding Li Beer. At this time, a middle-aged man spoke up bravely, "Who do you think you are? How dare you speak rudely after hitting Miss Li? Can you afford to pay for Miss Li's injuries? Get out of the way." He said to Li Beer diligently, "Ms. Li, are you okay?" There were several people accompanying her, and they all gathered around her to inquire about her well-being. Li Beer looked at Xiaoling with a bit of pride. He had brought so many people with him, but Xiaoling was alone. Her eyes became contemptuous and contemptuous. "Are you here for the audition? Why are all the people in Tianyi dead, and no one will accompany you? Or have you fallen out of favor?" The last 3 words are very vicious. She had seen Xiaoling and Li Lei together at the Nanshan Club, and thought that Xiaoling was also the kind of woman who sold her body. Second, young Master Li was famous in the industry for changing female partners very quickly. After such a long time, Xiaoling, it's not surprising that I fell out of favor. She looked over Xiaoling from head to toe and said, "Oh, you are a street vendor, can you wear it?" To be fair, Xiaoling's outfit today is not bad. She bought it from a limited edition brand when she was shopping in Paris last time. But that brand is too niche, and many people in China have never seen it. And Li Beer has now changed from a shotgun to a cannon. She is no longer the poor woman who snatched clothes from people in Lucas's store. Today, she is wearing Chanel all over her body, flamboyant and flamboyant. Li Beer was even more convinced that Xiaoling had fallen out of favor, and she became proud of herself. "Look at how you look like a drowned rat now, ha ha, yes Xingling, yes Xingling, when you were at the Nanshan Club, did you ever think that this day would happen? Let me tell you. Well, for today's audition, you'd better get home as soon as possible. You're so humble and you still want to compete with me. Competing? You don't deserve it," Xiaoling said lightly. Although her body was covered with coffee stains, her cold and calm expression was like a queen wearing royal robes, making everyone else feel ashamed. Li Beer was so angry that she almost exploded at her words, as if she had stung something in the leg, and a trace of hatred that could not be concealed flashed in her eyes. After a moment, she raised her head high and was even more domineering than before. "You are here for the audition, ha ha. What a pity. I think I should tell you that this role has been predetermined, the person selected is me. The audition is just a formality, I'm sorry to make you go for nothing." After saying that, she looked at Xiaoling's face carefully. trying to find the emotions of frustration, disappointment, and unwillingness on her face. However, she was the only one destined to be disappointed. Xiaoling still looked calm, looking at her like an idiot. Decided by default. She didn't know if Li Beer was telling the truth, but even if it was true, the producers dared to let her, Xiaoling, be a stepping stone and foil for others. Haha, she would make them all die ugly. Li Beer felt guilty at the sarcastic look in her eyes. She snorted coldly and turned away. Forget it, I poured coffee all over the stinky woman anyway, so let's stop arguing with each other. Humph, Director Jin's requirements are so strict, there's no way the stinky woman can pass the audition. The group of people passed in front of Xiaoling proudly. Xiaoling was thinking about the audition time, and her original intention of quarreling with her was gone. She would just write down the account and pay it another day. The entrance to the studio was quiet again. Xiaoling was about to go in, but was stopped by the security guard at the door. I'm sorry, miss, it was a young security guard, those who are disheveled are not allowed to enter. Xiaoling was startled for a moment, then looked down at the coffee stains on her body, and then said, I didn't mean to be disheveled, I was just hit by someone, and you saw it too. Please let me in, I'm here for the audition. She didn't bring any extra clothes with her when she went out this morning. The neighborhood seemed a bit remote and there weren't many shops selling clothes. She had to go into the studio and find a bathroom before the audition to take care of the clothes she was wearing. Maybe there is still help. You still want to audition in this outfit? The young security guard couldn't recognize the Paris limited edition brand she was wearing, but the cut and design were still very low-key. Although it looked appropriate and light, it was not gorgeous and dazzling. The young security guard looked contemptuous. Miss, look at the row of cars at the door. Do you know who are here for the audition today? As for the car you got off. He glanced at the direction where she got off the car. Lilei, wearing a casual t-shirt and trousers, was walking out of the cab. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 143. Chapter 143, Jin Dao, lying on the gun. You still have a driver for such a no-name car? Why does this driver dress so casually? He's not a full-time driver, right? Miss, let me tell you, don't find someone to temporarily act as a facade. Look, a driver who doesn't even know the dress code. Wouldn't it be revealed? Xiaoling looked at the security guard and then at Lilei, dumbfounded. He is indeed not very professional. She was so shocked that she said with some difficulty. Isn't that right? The young security guard looked at Lilei, who was getting closer and closer. You said you came here alone, without even an assistant, and you were messing with the driver. Look at Miss Li, there are only 2 or 3 assistants, as well as managers, makeup artists, and boys carrying bags. That's called pomp, don't you understand? Sure enough. Xiaoling thought silently in her heart, boss, I know how to lead you like my assistant Wai Wolfeng. Cough. Another security guard coughed. He looked much older, in his 40s or 50s. He tugged the young security guard hard, and then smiled apologetically at Xiaoling. I'm sorry, miss, Xiaozhang is new here and can't speak. If I offend you in any way, please forgive me. However, according to our rules, according to the regulations, those who are disheveled are indeed not allowed to enter, and I have to trouble you to go back and change your clothes before coming. The young security guard was unconvinced. Why can't I speak? What did I say wrong? Shame is shabby. Why are you pretending to be fat? What's so shabby? A magnetic and charming male voice interrupted. She turned around and saw Lilei walking towards her. Xiaoling, "Why haven't you gone in yet?" she said, frowning again. "What's wrong with your clothes?" Xiaoling briefly explained the matter. Li Lei's face turned a little gloomy. "Which Li Beer?" Xiaoling was silent. "Well, the kind of peripheral women who are close to their money masters are indeed not worthy of recognition in the eyes of the real proud men like them. No, in just a short time, he has turned those girls from the Nanshan Club on." Yan had forgotten. Just when she was about to say something, the young security guard had already sneered, "You don't know Miss Li Beer. You don't usually watch movies, right? She is a young rookie who was made famous by Director Jin, and she has a bright future. Director Jin is the chief director of war this time. He is very famous. He is several levels higher than Lin Yuanyi, who came to audition that day. Li Lei really doesn't watch movies very often, but that doesn't stop him from sneering. Jin Yifei is tired of living." Xiaoling was startled. What did this big boss want to do to Director Jin? She tugged on his sleeves and whispered, "Don't keep using knives and guns." He had bitten Pei Ziyan with Mao, and broken Nan Sheng's fingers with a gun. Xiaoling was really afraid that he would kill Jin Yifei on impulse. "Damn it, Director Jin, whom I have never met before. It's really a lie." The young security guard heard her words and laughed louder. "A knife or a gun? It turned out to be a gangster. I have seen many such street gangsters. Miss, I advise you not to find a gangster to pretend to be a driver. It is very embarrassing, do you know?" Li Lei stared at the security guard with an unfriendly expression. It doesn't matter how others laugh at him, but it doesn't matter if he laughs at Xiaoling. The old security guard's heart skipped a beat when he saw Li Lei's eyes. He has had a few more years of experience than the young security guard, and he is very accurate in reading people. Although the man in front of him in a casual t-shirt is unassuming, the power implicit in his eyes is better than that of many powerful and famous people. People are even more frightening. It is as if he is a born king who no longer needs extra pomp and foil to make people surrender. This is a magnanimity that can only be cultivated by being pampered and respected since childhood and being praised by others. The old security guard guessed that Li Lei had a good background, so he quickly covered the young security guard's mouth and dragged him behind him. "I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. Xiaozhang is new here and is not sensible. You two are not as knowledgeable as him. By the way, sir, I haven't asked you your surname yet." The old security guard smiled apologetically and didn't look. Xiaoling mainly looked at Li Lei. Xiaoling couldn't help but sigh. Zhang was still very old, and it only took a short while to recognize who the real master was. Li Lila ignored him and took out his cell phone. "Hey, Yunfeng, I'm at the audition site of War of Sorrow and asked your top person to come out and pick me up." "Huh? Why are you asking me? I sent my Xiaoling to audition. Yes, she is my darling, I finally got her. What, do you have any objections?" "Haha, okay, I'll treat you to a drink next time." After a few more jokes, I hung up the phone. The old security guard's expression changed. "Did you call Dongdu?" Xiaoling also remembered at this time that the largest investor in War of War was not Jinpen Media, which came to her for an audition, but Panhua Entertainment, a well-known company in the industry. As for the executive director of Fanhua Entertainment, coincidentally, he is Du Yunfen, whom he met last time at the Nanshan Club. He is Li Lei's die-hard brother. Li Lei didn't look at the security guard at all. He just lowered his head and spoke to Xiaoling, "Go in later and I'll have someone find clothes for you to change into. From now on, remember to prepare a set of clothes in my car, okay?" Xiaoling nodded obediently. Not long after, a man hurriedly walked out of the studio. He was in his 40s and had an extraordinary bearing. He was wearing high-end ready-made clothes, and even the buttons of his shirt were gold-plated. Seeing Xiaoling, he looked at her calmly, then turned to Li Lei without leaving a trace, with an earnest and decent smile on his face. "Is this Mr. Li?" "Hello, I am the producer of War of Sorrow filmmaker Zheng Desong. I didn't know you were coming today and didn't greet you from afar. It's really rude. Please forgive me. Xiaoling was amazed at the looks in these people's eyes. How come Li Lei was dressed so casually, yet they could accurately judge that he was more noble than her? It's really irritating to have people compare to each other. She glared at Li Lei unhappily, and then smiled secretly. Well, she was still a little proud to have such an impressive boyfriend. After Zheng Desong finished speaking, he bowed slightly with excellent manners, took the initiative to stretch out his hands, and shook Li Lei's hand. After shaking it, he straightened up and stretched out his right hand to Xiaoling. I checked today's audition list. Is this Miss Ye? Nice to meet you. Xiaoling did not stretch out her hand. She just spread her palms and said apologetically, I'm sorry, my hands are dirty. Li Bier's coffee spilled all over her body, making it sticky everywhere. Zheng Desong's face showed appropriate surprise, as if he had just noticed her embarrassment. Is this? I met a mad dog, Li Lei said. What's his name? Li. What? Xiaoling said, Li Bier. Yes, Li Bier. Li Lei's voice turned cold. He poured coffee all over Xiaoling. Instead of stopping him, these two security guards blocked Xiaoling from entering. Is Jin Yifei so great now? He can just raise a cat or a dog. People who dare to bully me. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 144. Chapter 144 Unexpected Gossip. Zheng Desong's expression changed, and he turned around and scolded the security guard. What did you do? Why don't you quickly apologize to Mr. Li and Miss Ye? The old security guard's face turned pale. I'm sorry, you two, for making us blind. We didn't know that you two were noble people. We know we were wrong. Please be generous to both of you and don't be as knowledgeable as little people like us. He said all his good things and looked at them pitifully. Life is not easy for a small person. Just when Xiaoling wanted to give up on Li Lei, the young security guard started shouting, why do you want me to apologize? People who are disheveled are not allowed to enter in the first place. I am enforcing company regulations. Zheng Desong looked at him expressionlessly. The company also requires you to stand by and look arrogant when you see distinguished guests in trouble. He stopped. You can go find the financial settlement office. You won't be able to come from tomorrow, Zheng Desong said coldly. The young security guard was stunned. Only then did he realize that he was afraid. He pursed his lips, as if he wanted to beg, but he didn't care about his face. He froze on the spot, squirming, which was very ridiculous. Zheng Desong stopped looking at him and turned to Li Lei and Xiaoling, with a decent and apologetic smile on his face. The security guard is not good enough and made you laugh. I apologize to you two on their behalf. It's really inappropriate. I'm sorry. I will punish them well and give you a satisfactory explanation. Xiaoling looked at the old security guard with some annoyance. From the beginning to the end, he had never offended her. Even if he prevented her from entering, he was always kind and polite. She pointed at the old security guard and said to Li Lei, he. Li Lei immediately understood what she meant. Mr. Zheng, forget about the older one. Zheng Desong was startled, smiled, and nodded. Miss Ye is really kind-hearted. Xiaoling was speechless. Is this called kindness? Bringing Li Lei out, it turns out that it has the effect of gaining flattery. The old security guard thanked me repeatedly. At this time, the young security guard finally came to his senses and apologized awkwardly. Yes, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Mr. Zheng, ladies and gentlemen, please don't fire me. Xiaoling doesn't have a good impression of this young security guard. Zheng Desong is right. Should he follow the company's regulations? Then why did he stand idly by when she got coffee thrown at her and got into trouble? You will not live if you do your own evil. She pursed her lips tightly and said nothing, while Li Lei also had a face as cold as ice. Zheng Desong watched their words and spoke before they spoke. You two don't need to plead for him, that will make it difficult for me. This security guard does not have qualified professional qualities. Even if he does not offend Miss Ye today, he will in the future if you offend other distinguished guests. Won't this cause trouble for the company? There are no rules, so I must set them this time. Li Lei's face brightened slightly, and he pulled Xiaoling into the studio. Zheng Desong led the way and led us to his office. He seated Li Lei and served tea. He also found someone to take Xiaoling to change clothes. Before leaving the office, Xiaoling suddenly remembered something and turned to look at Li Lei. You said. Li Lei sighed and said to Zheng Desong, Mr. Zheng, please keep the matter of my coming here a secret. Zheng Desong was startled, then put on an understanding smile. Of course, I'll go and tell the two security guards. She felt relieved. Although Li Lei is the big boss of Tianyi, he is very lazy and has never taken care of things. He almost never shows up in front of the public. She guessed that there weren't many people who knew him, and as long as he didn't make any noise about it, he should be able to pass by without incident, which was why she didn't resist him following him. Otherwise, if someone adds fuel to the gossip and spreads it out, God knows what will happen. The staff led Xiaoling to a small dressing room. After a while, they found a set of dance clothes and handed them to her. She lowered her head to look at it. It was smoky blue, elegant and pure, as if a stream of mist and rain were passing through her fingertips. The staff was a little apologetic. I'm sorry, Miss Ye, there are no brand new costumes here. This dance costume was borrowed from the prop team. However, although it is a prop, it has been strictly cleaned and disinfected. It is very clean and still beautiful, please don't mind. She nodded in acceptance. If it weren't for Li Lei's sake, I'm afraid he wouldn't even be able to borrow the dance clothes. Now this result is already very good. The staff exited the room and closed the door for her. Xiaoling put on her dance clothes alone. She walked to the floor-length mirror and looked at herself. She found that it fit unexpectedly, and she did a few random dance moves. It was very light and she felt no restraint at all. Very satisfied. Turn around and get ready to go out. However, just as he put his hand on the doorknob, he heard someone talking in the corridor outside. The one who just auditioned is pretty good, his eyes are so wild and his thighs are round and firm, I like it, a very frivolous voice. Director Jin, have your tastes changed recently? How can that Li Beer compare to you just now? That face, that figure, wow, just thinking about it makes me ecstasy. Another voice was more frivolous and lewd. Xiaoling was stunned for a moment. Director Jin Yifei? Before I could finish the thought, the first voice spoke again, with a flirtatious smile, you like it? I'll give you 2 days to play. How dare I touch your people? The second voice was obviously moved. What does it matter? I'm tired of it anyway. That little girl has been too worried recently. If I don't teach her a lesson, she will forget how much she weighs. That's it, then I'd rather be respectful than obey your orders. Thank you in advance, Director Jin. The two of them laughed together, and the sound gradually faded away. Xiaoling's hand paused on the doorknob for a moment. The stainless steel material was cool to the bone. The slight coldness made her wary. Is this Director Jin choosing a role or a harem? Suppressing her displeasure, she stood there and thought for a while. Instead of going directly to the audition, she turned back to the small office. Li Lei was a little surprised when he saw her. Xiaoling, why are you back? After saying that, he turned his head to look at her outfit, his eyes showing pleasant appreciation. You look good in this outfit. Xiaoling ignored the second half of his sentence and only said, I remembered one thing, when I bumped into Li Beer at the door just now, she said that the role this time has been decided, and it is her. If that is the case, actually I didn't you need to audition. Li Lei's cheerful expression disappeared, and he turned his head and looked at Zheng Desong questioningly. Zheng Desong immediately said, Li Bei really doesn't understand the rules. Miss Ye, don't argue with her. To tell you the truth, she was the one who was originally appointed. She has a good relationship with Jin Yifei recently, and she is also good at dancing. She has rubbed Jin Yifei a lot. It took a long time. But later, our assistant director recommended Ms. Ye. Jin Yifei was very interested and overturned the agreement with Li Bei, saying that the role would be for those who have the ability, and whether it is good or bad depends on the performance of this audition. So that's it, Xiaoling thought. No wonder Li Bei looked at her with such hatred. But, does Jin Yifei purely appreciate her dancing, or? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 145. Chapter 145. The Peonies in Bloom. Thinking of the conversation she overheard in the small dressing room, Xiaoling always felt uncomfortable. What was Jin Yifei looking at in the artist during the audition? Li Lei looked at her expression and asked, Xiaoling, do you have any more questions? Xiaoling hesitated and shook her head. After being together for so long, she finally discovered that Li Lei was easy to talk to when he was easy to talk to, but when his temper got worse, no one could bear it. Take today for example, he made such a big fuss over a trivial matter that the security guard at the door was fired. It would be bad if she did something to Jin Yifei because of her baseless suspicions. Zheng Desong said, Miss Ye, don't worry, our producer is keeping an eye on us. Even if you put aside your worries and audition, we will definitely give you a fair result. What's more, he looked at her, his words seemed to have deep meaning. Although Jin Yifei is romantic and ridiculous, he is by no means a person who can't tell the difference between the important and the important. These words made Xiaoling feel more at ease. Li Lei frowned at the words romantic and ridiculous and vaguely grasped something. Xiaoling, he stood up from the wide and thick sofa chair and said, I will accompany you there. Just as Xiaoling was about to say yes, his cell phone rang again. He took a look and frowned a little. She didn't know what the important call was. She didn't want to delay his business, so she said, you answer the phone. I'll just go there by myself. It'll be fine. Zheng Desong on the side was very sensible and stood up, I will send Miss Ye there. With Zheng Desong as his company, Li Lei felt more at ease, so he stopped insisting, Xiaoling, be careful. Xiaoling nodded and followed Zheng Desong towards the audition venue. The venue was not big. In the center was a small temporary stage with a wooden floor. Under the focus of cameras and spotlights from all directions, a girl in red was dancing gracefully. Her dancing posture was enchanting and elegant, like an elf bathing in fire. Xiaoling was calm at first glance. The girl was far inferior to her in dancing. Zheng Desong led her past several staff members and a large push of filming equipment to the edge of the temporary stage. There, she saw a recliner with a person leaning comfortably on it, wearing a floral shirt, crossing his legs, and the watch on his left wrist seemed to be of Vacheron Constantine. He didn't notice their arrival, and was talking enthusiastically to the man on the low stool next to him. The monster in red is quite a monster, but his basic skills are not very solid. His legs are not straight, and it is difficult to lower his waist. Her bones ached for that backspin action just now, it's not exciting enough to play with in bed. He didn't lower his voice deliberately. Maybe he couldn't hear it on the stage, but Xiaoling behind him could hear it clearly. Zheng Desong's face looked unhappy and he coughed heavily. The man on the recliner turned around and was a little surprised to see them. Brother Zheng, why are you here? Do you want to see me for something? He stood up as he spoke, with a smile on his face. Is this person next to you? Yes, Xiaoling said. Look carefully at the man's appearance. He has a very handsome face and a pair of peach blossom eyes that are so charming that they almost water. At this moment, he was looking at her unscrupulously with his eyes, and his gaze was simply peeling off her clothes layer by layer. Xiaoling felt disgusted in her heart and took 2 steps back into the darkness without leaving a trace. Zheng Desong seemed to sense that she was uncomfortable and blocked the man's sight intentionally or unintentionally. "Yifei," he said, "this is Ms. Yezingling Yi. I have an appointment to audition today. She is a distinguished guest. Please greet her well." "Okay," he emphasized the word distinguished guest. The man was startled for a moment, then smiled. I know, Miss Ye, you are so proud. Even Brother Zheng, who has never interfered in casting, thinks so highly of you." His eyes became serious and he stretched out to her. "Take action, let me introduce myself. I am Jin Yifei, the director of war. I heard the assistant director Lin Yuanyi mentioned you, and you are welcome to audition. It's also to blame that Lin Yuanyi has been busy recently." When he mentioned Xiaoling to Jin Yifei, he focused on how good she was at dancing, but forgot to mention her relationship with Li Lei. At the cocktail party that day, Li Lei protected everyone. Everyone saw it. If Jin Yifei knew about that incident, he would never have dared to look at Xiaoling with an improper look just now. Xiaoling stretched out her hand and shook it lightly. At this time, the girl in red above had finished her dance and left the stage. The staff simply cleaned up the venue and came over to ask Jin Yifei if he could conduct the next audition. Jin Yifei looked at Xiaoling and smiled. "Miss Ye, are you ready? The venue has been vacated." She nodded and walked up. Nay, her ears are very good, and she heard Jin Yifei and Zheng Desong's whispers behind her clearly. "Hey, Brother Zheng, who is this Yexing Ling? Isn't she just a new member of Tianyi? Why do I need you to accompany me here in person? He has a backer, so be careful, put away your tricks of attracting bees and butterflies, and don't get into trouble." "Backer," Jin Yifei said in surprise. Could it be that he was hired? "No, he looks just average. What kind of good sponsor can I find who is better than me? Brother Zheng, who is the sponsor? Just this look." "Keep your voice down," Zheng Desong was a little annoyed. "Stop making trouble. After all, you are someone you can't afford to offend." With their whispers, Xiaoling walked step by step towards the center of the stage. More and more spotlights were focused on her, and the blazing light quickly cleared all the distracting thoughts from her ears and mind. She could no longer hear their voices. When she stood still in the center of the stage, her heart and eyes were clear, and all that was left was dancing. The sound of the gukun plays and the beautiful melody of Chinese classical dance. She is familiar with this melody. Before the audition, this was the music sent to her by the crew. All the artists participating in the casting must choreograph to this music and choreograph the dance steps that the dancer will dance at the palace banquet. She has practiced with great concentration. The dance steps are spinning out, the body is stretched, and a water-cutting dagger in the hand turns into a stream of light. The dance she choreographed was not easy to dance. One difficult move after another. She kicked the purple gold crown upside down and then spun sharply. She twisted her body and bowed her waist to hold a peony in her mouth. The movements were natural and flowing, no wonder she showed off her skills. The film crew didn't specify it. So many difficult moves? In order to make so many movements beautiful and dazzling, she took it upon herself to add more difficult movements. I remember the first time I practiced, after one set of dances, I felt like my body was in knots. The effect is also amazing. The sword was shining continuously, and the peonies in her mouth were still carrying the cool dew and faint fragrance. In a daze, she felt that she had returned to the palace feast 1,000 years ago. The concubines and ministers were intertwined with their own thoughts. She was in the prosperous age. The center sings and dances alone. In a drunken dream, he leans back and starts to rotate, downwards in circles, and then downwards, spinning himself into a bright and blooming peony. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Sci-fi. Chapter 146. Chapter 146. Director Jin, you have watched too many Korean dramas. There were faint voices coming from the surroundings, and there seemed to be some commotion, but Xiaoling had no time to be distracted. She has been completely immersed in the role. In this gorgeous dance, she is the best dancer and the best assassin. She is alluring, just for the assassination. The body was spinning faster and faster, and the desire in her heart was getting more and more fervent. She looked at the emperor on the dragon throne, his enchanted eyes, and his fragile throat. She could almost imagine how fragrant and sweet it would be when he was swept away with a sharp sword in his hand. The taste of victory. The heart is beating, the dagger is buzzing, the body dances together, eager and fierce. She felt the peony flower in her mouth shattering, the petals flying away, brushing against her face and the tip of the sword. The number of whirlwind dance circles is increasing, and the center of gravity of the body is getting lower and lower. She is getting closer and closer to the earth, and the commotion around her starts again, and the exclamations one after another sound so far away, as if they come from another world. I don't know how long it took, but my speed slowed down as if by instinct. But it still spins around and around, dancing constantly based on feeling, like a flower blooming wantonly into the darkest place, gradually turning into a phantom, a ghost, and a faint wisp in the darkness. The eye-catching ripples, condensed all colors, as if even life was exhausted. Hurling dance is a skill that is difficult to do quickly and even more difficult to do slowly. But instinctively, from the depths of her soul, she seems to be born knowing what to do to jump to the best. She is a born dancer, perhaps, this is God's blessing. The sound of the music gradually softened as she danced. After spinning the last circle, Xiaoling calmly lowered her body to the lowest position, folded her legs, and touched her forehead to the ground. In the illusion of overflowing light and shadow, she seemed to see the emperor smiling at her, standing up, and extending his hand. She also smiled, her body like a gathered flower, the most gloomy and decadent, just for this last moment, to explode. Boom, a sound. The big drum suddenly sounded. At that moment, she turned over and jumped up, twisted her waist and turned the dagger sideways to thrust out, tearing the air with the momentum of killing with one strike. Emergency stop. There was a scream, accompanied by the noise of equipment collapsing. Then, everything was completely silent. The dance is over. Xiaoling was still panting, maintaining the final assassination dance. She was surprised to find that the dagger in her hand was pointing directly at the person in front of her, Jin Yifei. At this time, he was lying on the ground in a state of embarrassment, his body buried in a pile of crushed photographic equipment. He looked at her in shock, his mouth wide open, as if he wanted to say something, but no sound came out. No way, you were so frightened by a prop dagger? However, it is indeed not polite to point at people. Xiaoling sheathed her sword and apologized to Jin Yifei, Director Jin, I didn't mean it. He didn't seem to hear anything, still looking at her in shock, motionless. Xiaoling raised her hand to wipe the sweat from her forehead. Although she only danced for a few minutes, the physical exertion was huge. She was very thirsty. She turned around to look for water, but found that there were people standing around the small temporary stage. All the staff gathered around and looked at her with blazing eyes. Great dance, someone shouted first. Then there was a round of cheers and applause. Xiaoling was stunned. It was just an audition. She didn't expect such a big reaction on the spot. It would be a lie to say she was unhappy. She waved to them, as if she had found the feeling of being followed by thousands of fans in her previous life. She smiled, made a light and elegant curtsy, and made a perfect curtain call. "Yasin Ling," a loud shout came from the side. She turned around and saw that Jin Yifei had stood up from the pile of equipment. He was holding onto the tripod with one hand and pointing at her with the other hand tremblingly. "You are the one. Genius dancer, perfect assassin. This role belongs to you." The excitement made him almost faint. He stumbled up to her, took her hand and shook it hard. "Yasin Ling, you must take this role. As a gold medal director, I guarantee that you will be popular in this role. Absolutely popular. Oh my God. It's really a stroke of luck this time. Thank you for not appointing Li Beer directly, thank you for being able to make a substitution." Xiaoling was silent, so she stole Li Beer's role and indirectly took revenge on that woman? Jin Yifei held her hand tightly and wouldn't let go. The other hand reached out from his side and grabbed Jin Yifei's collar and dragged him away. "Miss Ye, congratulations," it was Zheng Desong, handing over a cup of tea. "You are very welcome to play this role. We will send staff to finalize the contract with your agent later, and we look forward to cooperation." Xiaoling took the tea, took a sip, and looked sideways at the great director next to Zheng Desong, who was still too excited to control himself. "There is no problem with the character. The question is this Jin Yifei reliable?" Zheng Desong followed her gaze, looked at Jin Yifei, and smiled. "Yifei is usually a bit carefree, but when it comes to making movies, he has nothing to say. He has amazing intuition and control. To put it bluntly, if you are not modest, you will be rewarded for your success. Yifei's professionalism is far beyond that of other directors of his generation." "Okay, anyway, Sister Maina said that this is a good opportunity, and Sister Maina will never cheat her." Xiaoling nodded and said, "It's okay with me. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first." The audition was over, and the rest was her agent's business, which had little to do with her. She was thinking about going to Lilei, but she didn't know if he had finished the phone call. Zheng Desong kept her. "Miss Ye, please wait a moment. I have sent someone to buy a new set of shirts and trousers. If you don't mind, you can go to the dressing room and change out of your dance clothes." As expected of the top responsible person, so meticulous and thoughtful. Xiaoling thanked him and went to the small dressing room to change clothes. They were of good quality and very comfortable to wear. However, the size seems to be a little too big, but that's okay, at least it looks like a good fit from the outside. She looked around in the mirror to make sure everything was packed before leaving, when she heard a knock on the door. Opening the door, she saw Jin Yifei's slender body leaning against the door, smiling at her with his eyes bent. He was still wearing the well-made floral shirt, with the top two buttons unbuttoned, revealing the gold and emerald pendant around his neck, which complemented the shiny famous watch on his wrist, a perfect example of a wealthy second-generation dude. "Won't you invite me to come in and sit down, Xiaoling?" he said with a smile, as if he had known her for 10,000 years. Xiaoling did not move. "Xiaoling, half an hour ago, he called her Miss Ye." He smiled a bit rogue. "I heard that everyone in Tianyi calls you that." "Xiaoling, look, we are going to work together on the same crew soon. It's so unfamiliar to call you by our first name, isn't it? By the way, you just call me Brother Yifei." "Yifei, brother. Director Jin, have you watched too many Korean dramas?" End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 147. Chapter 147. How dare you tease me? Xiaoling looked at him expressionlessly. "Director Jin, do you have something to do with me?" He exaggeratedly covered his heart with his hands. "Xiaoling, how can you be so indifferent to me?" Xiaoling said, "Sorry, I have to leave." Let's talk another day. He quickly stopped at the door. No, can't I come to you if I have nothing to do? How about a favor and have dinner with me tonight? I know a very good Thai restaurant. She suspected that she was hallucinating half an hour ago. Didn't Zheng Desong already tell him not to provoke her? Director Jin, someone is waiting for me. Xiaoling added emphasis on the second half of the sentence. Jin Yifei looked at her and shrugged, you are not dating anyone. No matter who is waiting for you, there is no way to stop me from inviting you to dinner. After thinking about it, he added, don't worry, Xiaoling, even if you are at home, no matter how rich and powerful you are, my family's conditions are not bad, and they are definitely worthy of you. If you stay with me, you will definitely not lose your status. Honestly, he thought her backers were family members, not lovers. No wonder he dares to come up with ideas. Xiaoling looked at him in surprise. How do you know who I'm not dating? Even the look in Zheng Desong's eyes made her think that she was hired by Li Lei, and she even went to tell Jin Yifei that she had a backer. He stole it from her before she went on stage for the audition. Judging from the conversation I heard, didn't Jin Yifei also agree with this guess? Why did it change so soon? He. His eyes moved around her, with a look of on his face, I can't be wrong about people. I observed you carefully when you were dancing just now. Although your body is very flexible, it is clearly, haven't been. Xiaoling had a gut feeling that he didn't have anything nice to say. Just as her face darkened, someone spoke up for her. Are you tired of teasing me? The voice was cold and filled with murderous intent. Jin Yifei was shocked and shut up. Xiaoling looked up and saw Li Lei standing 3 steps away, looking very bad. Li, Boss Li. Jin Yifei looked at Li Lei in shock. You, why are you here? Xiaoling is a little surprised. Does he know Li Lei? Turning around, he saw that Li Lei still had a gloomy look on his face, and he spoke in a deep voice, take care of yourself and your other warblers. If I find you provoking Xiaoling again. Jin Yifei finally realized something was wrong. Oh my god, this innocent-looking girl in front of him turned out to be Li Lei's person. At this moment, he really wanted to slap his 2 big ears. If he had known it, he should have listened to Zheng Desong's warning. Why do you want to mess around with women when you have nothing to do? No, this has hit a brick wall. He and Li Lei are indeed old acquaintances. The Jin family is engaged in foreign trade and usually offends many people. When cargo ships go overseas, they often attract people's attention and need the protection of the Li family. After going back and forth, the 2 families became familiar with each other. This Jin Yifei is the youngest son of the family. He has been spoiled since he was a child and is a who spends a lot of time and alcohol. When he was a teenager, he defied his family's arrangements and refused to join the family business to help manage it. He worked alone in the film and television industry. He had some troubles in his early years. Thanks to Li Lei's care, he was where he is today. Hence, he is not afraid of heaven or earth, but is afraid of severe thunder. If he had known it was Li Lei's woman, even if he had 10 more courages, he wouldn't have dared to move. Jin Yifei burst into tears in his heart and nodded, yes, I promise, my group of warblers and I will never provoke Xiaoling again. Wait, no, my group of warblers Yan? Boss Li, who is the one who offends Xiaoling? I want her to look good. Li Lei narrowed his eyes and smiled, Li Beer. This time he finally remembered the name of the woman who was seeking death. It turns out it's her. Jin Yifei exploded when he heard this. I just said that this little has become more and more restless recently. If I give her some good colors, she can open a dyeing shop and cause trouble for me everywhere. Boss Li, little Ling, don't worry, I'll kick her right now. No breakup fee. Xiaoling, you originally said you would give her to someone else. Jin Yifei was startled. Xiaoling smiled half-heartedly, the corridor outside the dressing room. Jinyi quickly cried, so you heard it all. Okay, I admit that I already want to kick her. It's normal for this kind of woman not to change hands to others in the future. Li Lei's eyes darkened and he glanced at Jin Yifei warningly. Jin Yifei immediately stopped the topic. As smart as he was, he naturally saw that Boss Li didn't want anyone to say such dirty words in front of Xiaoling. It's really strange, aren't they just some little actresses who are sleeping with them? How come they are so rich and valuable, but why can't they be like rich ladies who can't listen to such bad words? Wait, that's not right? Suddenly an idea flashed in Jin Yifei's mind. He was right about seeing people. He had just said what he wanted to say just now. Judging from the girl's figure and dancing posture, it was clear that she had not been touched by a man and she was clean. Innocent little girl. Unless Boss Li's function suddenly stopped working, there is definitely something fishy about this. This girl is no ordinary little actress. Jinyi was so blessed that he blurted out, "Sister-in-law." "What did you call me?" Xiaoling was dumbfounded. "Sister-in-law," Jin Yifei smiled with a slanderous face. "Sister-in-law, don't be offended. I will definitely handle Li Beer's matter well and never introduce her to others. I will ban her, hide her, and ruin her reputation, will cut off her wealth. Why should she offend her sister-in-law?" "Who is your sister-in-law?" Xiaoling collapsed. "Jin Yifei, Boss Li is like my elder brother, and you are my sister-in-law. Shameless people are invincible in the world." Jin Yifei's shameless skills can be said to be extremely proficient. Even though he is a third-year man, he can still call an 18-year-old girl like this without any psychological pressure. He also smiled flatteringly at Li Lei. Laugh. This move is very useful. Li Lei's originally displeased expression suddenly turned from gloomy to clear. Well, this little brother of the Jin family is very discerning. Xiaoling's face turned red. She had never been called that by anyone in her entire life. She has always been accustomed to hiding her love in a dark corner, without access to light and blessings, but now, it has been recognized. With mixed feelings in her heart, she raised her eyes to look at Li Lei, who was also looking at her with a smile. Her face turned redder and she shouted at Jin Yifei, "Shut up." The voice was very soft. Sister-in-law was embarrassed. Jin Yifei closed his mouth with a playful smile. Countless gossip factors arose in his heart. Oh my God, he guessed correctly. This girl and Boss Li were actually a serious couple. Without those messy hidden rules and money relationships, it's just a clear and pure love. Last Li's first love. Big gossip. Jin Yifei wanted to howl and share this breaking news with everyone he knew. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 148. Chapter 148 playing a big role. However, he cannot. When Xiaoling fiercely threatened Li Lei not to expose it, Li Lei could only fiercely threaten Jin Yifei to keep it secret. Jin Yifei said he was submissive, but in fact he was heartbroken and endured all kinds of difficulties. What did he see? Is this delicate-looking girl threatening Boss Li? And Boss Li hasn't resisted yet? Why didn't he realize before that Boss Li was still a strict wife? Oh my God! This world is so crazy. Jin Yifei was about to burst into tears. Xiaoling didn't care about all that. She was relieved after receiving the promise of confidentiality. After a while, she still came to the crew in a very low-key car to participate in the on-site shooting of War. She was going to film a highlight, the assassination at the palace banquet. All the main characters in the play are gathered together, and the big names gather together. These big names have tight schedules and bad tempers. They are used to being supported and served by others. When they see Xiaoling, a little star who has just debuted, they don't pay much attention to them. Xiaoling doesn't like hypocritical social interactions and enjoys leisurely life. Jin Yifei was nervous, so he pulled her away a few steps before turning on the phone. Sister-in-law. Xiaoling, don't call me sister-in-law. Jin Yifei put on a playful face. I know, I can't expose your relationship with Boss Li, right? Don't worry, I will still call you Xiaoling when there are people around, and I will call you sister-in-law in private when there is no one around. It doesn't matter, he has been playing with flowers for many years, what kind of girl has he not seen? Director Jinda, who is well versed in the psychology of girls, had long realized that Xiaoling was bluffing. She said she didn't want it, but her body, but in her heart she liked Boss Li. Jin Yifei said, sister-in-law, be careful. These big shots are all masters and cannot afford to offend them. Xiaoling was unable to correct his title, but she was confused. You can't afford to offend me. Although she saw 2 movie kings, 1 movie queen, and a few popular young talents in this luxurious lineup, she could in any case. Jin Yifei is a great director who has won many awards internationally, and his glittering reputation is even better than that of these best actors and actresses. Sure enough, Jin Yifei jumped to his feet. Who said that? No matter how good an actor is, he still has to obey me. Xiaoling continued to wonder. Then Jin Yifei stopped jumping and glanced at Xiaoling, frustrated. Forget it, pretend I didn't say anything. Even I can't afford to offend you, sister-in-law, you are the master. Okay, he started gossiping again. Sister-in-law, when will you and Boss Li hold a banquet? Then I will call a bunch of brothers to support you. Having a drink? Bazi has not been written yet. Xiaoling felt inexplicably empty in her chest. It was just an accident that she agreed to be with Li Lei. Maybe it was because she had been struggling in the darkness for so long that she couldn't wait to grab the only ray of sunshine. Li Lei is that ray of sunshine, warm and bright, which can dispel her endless cold and fear. But, getting married? Does she still deserve a wedding? Director Jin, it's time to start filming, the studio assistant ran over and greeted loudly. Jin Yifei responded and turned back to Xiaoling, sister-in-law, let's go there. Relax and take pictures, don't be nervous. Xiaoling's heart was in a mess, and she didn't know how she followed him. It wasn't until she held the dagger used as a prop in her hand that she managed to calm down. Music starts. Lighting, the lens follows. She performed the gorgeous sword dance based on instinct. Jin Yifei stood behind the cameraman, but his expression gradually became serious. Crack, he shouted. Xiaoling stopped and turned to look at him inquiringly. Sister-in-law, Xiaoling, he said, your expression is wrong. You need to be more charming, more seductive, and a bit demonic. Don't be too sad, and be more fierce. You were very good in the audition before. Like a rose with blood and thorns. Xiaoling understood that she was distracted and apologized. Then reshoot. Still not right. Xiaoling understood that it was difficult for her to concentrate now, so she said to Jin Yifei, sorry, director, let's shoot other scenes first. I'll be quiet for a while and feel it. As soon as she said these words, the whole place fell into silence. The scenery alone for this important scene took a whole morning to set up. If other scenes were shot first, they would have to be dismantled. What's more, many of her co-stars are famous celebrities. The whole room is filled with emperors, generals, princesses, and concubines. The time of these people is precious, and every minute and every second is worth money. She is just a small star. What qualifications do you have to delay them here? If it doesn't work, just replace her, a popular actress has already scolded, we really can't cooperate with the performance like this. Director Jin, you can either replace her or us. Xiaoling was startled, and then she realized that she was too distracted this time. It's not that she didn't dance well, it was the words she blurted out when she was distracted. She forgot that this was not Tianyi, not Wei Shayan's MV shooting site, nor the Emperor Studios under the protection of Pei Zion, nor a place where she was treated like a princess among all the stars. Here, she is just a little star, how can she act so big that a group of big names are waiting for her? Even she herself felt a little embarrassed about this situation. Jin Yifei also has a headache. Ancestors, this is a group of ancestors. However, for the sake of Boss Lee, he decisively chose to side with Xiaoling. Okay, everyone, let's take a rest first. We will shoot this later. The popular actress was very unhappy. Why, who does she think she is? Before Jin Yifei could say anything, Xiaoling was already angry and said coldly, shooting now. Okay, let's eat NG together and see how many times you can last. It was autumn, and their set was shot in a scenic spot deep in the mountains. It was a midsummer show, and the female artists were all dressed very coolly. Xiaoling was a dancer, so it was okay that she kept moving, but the artists who were sitting there were all shivering from the cold. You, the popular actress gritted her teeth. Xiaoling looked at her provocatively. Yes, Xiaoling said something she shouldn't have said, but that doesn't mean she can endure the contempt of others. Isn't she just a popular actress? What kind of superiority show? I remember when she was being held in the palm of someone's hand and tailor-made for a large-scale film, this so-called popular actress didn't know which dinner party she was asking for a role at. The atmosphere seems to be getting more and more tense. Jin Yifei began to worry about the popular actress. In terms of fighting, she was definitely no match for Xiaoling. Not to mention Xiaoling's own fighting prowess, and there was a big boss standing behind her. How could this actress fight with her? So, director Jinda started to break up the fight again. Let's break up. It's such a cold day, go and warm yourself up, don't keep eating in the wind. This powerful reason convinced everyone, except for Dang Hong, who was slapped in the face by Xiaoling. The actress and several other big names are dissatisfied, but they don't want to really get cold air here. God knows when that little star named Ye Xingling will be NGED. It's better to break up and wait until she finds her groove before filming again. The cast and crew dispersed to shoot one scene first. The popular actress hugged the big shawl given by her assistant, walked past Xiaoling arrogantly, and added, "What the hell?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 149. Chapter 149. These scenes have been deleted. Xiaoling gave her a disdainful look. The actress stopped. Yes, Xingling, what do you mean by looking at me like this? Sun Jing, do you really take yourself seriously? Xiaoling sarcastically turned around and didn't want to talk to her anymore. For the sake of the chief director Jin Yifei calling her sister-in-law, calling Li Lei boss, she didn't want to cause too much trouble on the set. The mountains and rivers will not change, everyone is in the same circle, and there will be plenty of opportunities to deal with people in the future. It's a pity that Sun Jing refused to give up and blocked her way. Oh, you little brat, are you going to fight with me? It's great to get a small role, right? Even the seniors don't take it seriously. Let me tell you, Sun Jing, not only the role is bigger than yours, and you also got an endorsement for this film. What about you? What else can you do besides earning a NG salary? This Sun Jing has a gorgeous appearance and a pair of charming phoenix eyes. She has been endorsing a good gold jewelry brand, Dynasty Gold Jewelry, for a long time. It was indeed thanks to her that this movie was sponsored by Dynasty. There are very few sponsors for costume dramas, so the sponsorship she attracted was crucial. It's just that Sun Jing is a bit arrogant. She thinks of herself as a great hero and brags to everyone. This time I was ridiculed by Xiaoling, which was even more remarkable. I wanted to use this endorsement to crush Xiaoling to death, so that Xiaoling could see the insurmountable gap between the big stars and the little stars. When she yelled like this, the staff and celebrities who were resting around her all looked over. Some people were silently mourning for Xiaoling in their hearts. This little star who had just debuted had never seen Sun Jing's ability to step on others. Did she think that Sun Jing was just provoking? That would be a big mistake. A male star bumped the actor next to him with his elbow. "Hey, brother Wrong, do you think the camera over there is turned off?" The actor's name was Rong Ping. Hearing this, he glanced at the silent camera and picked up a cup to drink water. "It's better to let that little girl suffer a little. She's too stubborn. If she doesn't stumble now, she will stumble a lot later." The male star smiled and shook his head. "Brother Wrong, you really don't show mercy at all. Over there, I don't know what the two of them were arguing about." Xiaoling's expression was indifferent, but Sun Jing's expression had changed from angry and arrogant to aggrieved. She was biting her lips as if she wanted to cry. She was born gorgeous, and her pear blossom-like appearance made people couldn't help but cherish her. Compared to Xiaoling, her cold and aloof appearance made her look arrogant. Jin Yifei felt that he was going crazy. He had just been pulled by the stage manager to talk about something. When he turned around, he found that he was being strangled again. He quickly called the cameraman. "The cameras are turned off. Do you want to die? How much benefit can Sun Jing give you? No matter what, if Yexingling is in trouble, I will chop off your heads." The two cameramen rarely saw Mr. Jin getting so angry, so they quickly turned off the camera. They really took advantage of Sun Jing's agent and planned to shoot a scene of a fight, and then process it and add it to the news. Basically, it was a small star acting like a big star, and the popular actress Sun Jing was wronged for the sake of the overall situation. This is how Sun Jing got to her current status, by stepping on others all the way. Xiaoling was completely unaware of this method. Whether she was in the Emperor in her previous life or in Tianyi in this life, she was protected too well and went smoothly. How could she know about these dirty things? No one dared to do it to her before. Even after her fight with Xiaoyu, she knew she had to be wary of the paparazzi, but she never expected that even the film crew's cameraman would have to be wary. "Delete them all," Jin Yifei said again. The two cameramen did not dare to neglect, and under the supervision of Jin Yifei, they quickly deleted all the shots they had taken before. The male star sitting next to Rongping saw it and said to Rongping, "Oh, this little girl is lucky. Director Jin is so protective of her. It seems that she won't be able to survive this time." Rongping looked calm on the surface, but he was surprised in his heart. Jin Yifei was too kind to the little girl, but it didn't look like the two of them were together. So, what is Yexingling's background? What kind of backer does Director Jin have so much to worry about? "Don't mess with that girl." Rongping patted the male star next to him on the shoulder. "Ah," the male star was at a loss, then smiled again. "Brother Rong, see what you said, good men don't fight with women. Besides, that little girl is pretty good. I saw her dance audition, it was really amazing. I just ate ng. She is definitely not in a good state and is distracted. Moreover, the aura when she speaks, gee, those who don't know think she is a queen. Brother Wrong, I think one day she will be able to win a movie king or queen with you. Little golden man." This is a very high praise, and it is rare that Rongping nodded in agreement. Then they will have a moment of silence for Sun Jing. Poor Sun Jing still fantasizes about tricking people, but she doesn't know that she can't afford to trick people. "How could you go so far and say that my endorsement is rubbish?" Sun Jing didn't know that the camera lens had been turned off, but she was still performing with great emotion. "You obviously haven't gotten a single sponsorship endorsement, how can you be so embarrassed?" Xiaoling didn't say that Dynasty Gold jewelry was at all, she just said that her spokesperson was rubbish. But Sun Jing consciously made the topic bigger. This was no longer a personal grudge between the two, but Xiaoling's blatant contempt for the film sponsor. No matter how slow Xiaoling was, she could tell that something was wrong. She frowned and was about to speak when a voice interrupted. It's so lively here. When she turned around, she saw an old man with white hair, wearing a navy blue Chinese tunic suit and mil-layer bottom cloth shoes. He was holding a cane in one hand and walking slowly with the help of a young girl. Come over. Mr. Gu. Xiaoling was extremely surprised. Isn't this the true head of the Gu family that she met in Gu Garden? What kind of wind brought this giant Buddha here? Little girl, are you being bullied again? Mr. Gu looked at her with a kind expression. Facing this elder who also wanted to show some respect to Li Lei, Xiaoling had a good attitude. She put away all her cynicism and arrogance and said with a smile, Mr. Gu, you see I am so easily bullied. Person. The words made Mr. Gu smile, shake his head, and look at her gently. It's strange to call me Mr. Gu, just call me Grandpa Gu like Xiaolei Li Lei like this little girl, and Mr. Gu looked at her. He is also pleasing to the eye, and his words are much more cordial than how he treats others. Everyone around was stunned. Where did this old man come from? Looking at his attire and demeanor, it is obvious that he has an extraordinary background, and it is unknown which mountain or temple he belongs to. However, Sun Jing was not convinced. Relying on the fact that she had a backer, she decided to ask Mr. Gu, excuse me, who are you? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 150. Chapter 150. Mr. Gu comes to visit the class. As Mr. Gu, he would never talk to an actress. He only spoke to Xiaoling, little girl, Grandpa Gu came here today and brought his useless granddaughter to apologize to you. Xiaoling blinked, useless granddaughter, apologize. Only then did she notice that the person standing by and supporting Mr. Gu was actually Gu Lin, who had a conflict with her at the emperor's reception some time ago. At first, this girl Gu Lin was arrogant, but now she is as docile as a little sheep around Mr. Gu. Xiaoling smiled lightly and said, it's over now. I don't care about it anymore. Yes, you don't take it to heart, Mr. Gu said angrily and laughed at the same time. You girl, you are so angry that you just refuse to accept the endorsement of Star Wings. It was Gu Lin's fault at the reception that day. But neither she nor her father has the right to change the old man's decision. Girl, it's my decision to accept the Star Wings, and nothing they say counts. Everyone around him took a breath, and then realized that the identity of the old man in Mao suit in front of him was actually the head of the famous Gu family chaebol who had retired for many years. Everyone in the industry had heard the news about the breakup between Star Wings and Ye Xingling. Everyone thought that Ye Xingling had suffered a big loss this time. What good could come from offending the Gu family? Unexpectedly, it was the old man of the Gu family who came to apologize to her in person. Sun Jing's face changed slightly. Although the dynasty gold jewelry she received was good, it had not reached the scale of Gu's chaebol, and the backer behind her was far less strong than the old man of the Gu family. For a time, her posture and expression became much more respectful. Xiaoling didn't care, it doesn't count? Uncle Gu has already hired a lawyer to issue a termination letter. I have already dealt with the matter of the termination letter, Mr. Gu said kindly. Girl, you don't want to be like your Uncle Gu. He is just such a precious daughter. She is usually spoiled and hot-headed. I have already punished him. When he learned that Gu's father wanted to terminate the contract with Xiaoling, Mr. Gu was furious. He used family methods that night and deprived Gu's father of part of his inheritance rights. His son was good at everything, but he was too disorganized when it came to the discipline of his grandchildren. He doted on them to the limit, and he had to spend the Gu family's financial resources and reputation to clean up the mess. Father Gu can destroy a Star Wing for his daughter today. There is no guarantee that the entire Gu family will be destroyed tomorrow. This is the reason why Mr. Gu Lei is so angry. He is not allowed to squander the family's accumulation of more than 100 years like this. Mr. Gu also reprimanded Gu Lin severely and warned her that no matter how much she misbehaves, she must not do anything detrimental to the interests of the Gu family. Otherwise, if she does it again next time, she will be removed from the family tree. He always means what he says. At this moment, Gu Lin was afraid. If her identity as the eldest daughter of the Gu family was stripped away, she would be nothing. There was no way, no matter how much resentment, unwillingness, and grievance she felt in her heart, she had to follow Mr. Gu's wishes and apologize to Xiaoling. Yes, I'm sorry, she lowered her head, clenched her fists tightly, and whispered to Xiaoling, yes Yingling, I was wrong. Don't be the same as me. Please come back and continue to be the spokesperson of my star wings. She was almost furious. It was all because of those executives talking nonsense in front of her grandfather, saying that after Star Wings lost the endorsement of Yexin Ling, its reputation and sales continued to decline. Otherwise, how could Grandpa be so cruel? Let a rich lady of your family apologize to a little star? This little star even seduced Brother Lei. Gu Lin was extremely angry. Actually, Mr. Gu doesn't know what Gu Lin is thinking. Even Gu's father had to save his daughter's face in front of Li Lei even if he dared to lose his star wings. Wasn't it just his dream to marry into the Li family? However, Mr. Gu, who had had a few more years of food, understood deeply that girl Lin was destined not to marry Li Lei. Not to mention that Li Lei didn't have such thoughts. He had regarded Gu Lin as his sister for so many years. Even if he had such thoughts, Mr. Gu would definitely not agree to this engagement. The Li family is from a gangland background. Even though the business at home is calm, it is very chaotic overseas. Arms dealers, smugglers, pirates, and mercenaries are all inextricably linked to their family. It was too dangerous to marry into such a family. Even Li Lei's biological mother, the niece of the Italian mafia godfather, died in a fight because her personality was too weak, let alone Gu Lin, who had no underworld background. And a girl who is too simple. Yes, in Mr. Gu's eyes, Gu Lin is too simple, even a little stupid. Gu Lin looks smart, but in fact she always messes around regardless of time and place, regardless of the consequences, and the girlfriend Li Lei chose for himself, the girl standing coldly in front of him, is completely opposite to Gu Lin. Although he seems to be quiet, he actually has his own ideas. He is tough and arrogant when he should be strong and arrogant, and he will never show off when he should be low-key. Only such a person is worthy of spending his life hand in hand with the future head of the Li family. What Mr. Gu has to do is not to let his unhappy son and granddaughter offend the future head of the Li family. No, it is very likely that they have already offended Li Lei. How can the friendship between the two families continue after 100 years of Mr. Gu? Do not turn against each other. Mr. Gu was worried about his children and grandchildren, so regardless of his age and status, he personally took Gu Lin to the studio in the mountains to apologize to Xiaoling, hoping that Xiaoling could continue to endorse Star Wings regardless of past grudges. Wings of the Star is a small matter, but repairing the relationship is a big deal. Xiaoling didn't know that Mr. Gu had so many thoughts, but since the old man personally brought someone to apologize, she couldn't help but give him face. So, she smiled and said, I won't mention the previous matter. I will adjust the notice sheet with my agent to set aside time for Gu's Star Wings endorsement. This means accepting the Gu family's apology. Mr. Gu breathed a sigh of relief. Sure enough, he was right. The girl in front of him was definitely not a fool. On the contrary, she knew the general situation and took the overall situation into consideration. She was so proud and fiery. When she saw Gu Lin bowing her head to apologize, she did not take the opportunity to get angry and step on her. This was definitely to give the Gu family face. Mr. Gu's eyes became more kind. Girl, Mrs. Gu will not treat you badly. You don't need to be treated badly, Xiaoling smiled. Grandpa Gu has come all the way, why don't you take a rest here? there is a 5-star hotel nearby rented by the crew, and I asked Director Jin to give you 2 rooms. Mr. Gu hasn't responded at all, and everyone onlookers are in bad shape. Why do you ask for Director Jin? Who is Director Jinda? He is a top director who has won numerous international awards. You are just a little star, why do you have such a tone of commanding your own little brother? It just so happened that little brother Jin was happy to be called upon. Yes, yes, I'll do it right away. Everyone's eyes were about to fall out. End of this chapter.